Hi, I'm Joe Finsternus, and tonight I'm going to be talking to you about a movie called The Blob. And for those of you who can't read numbers, I am talking about the original. And yes, this is actually the first time that I've sat down and watched this movie. I have seen the remake before, and I thought it was pretty cool. You know, obviously, most of what I can remember from it is just the gruesome special effects. But for those of you uninformed about this movie, in this, a meteor crashes to Earth, and some goo comes out of the meteor, and it turns out that this substance has a life of its own, and it goes around and starts eating people. So, going into this, I actually had no idea that the song Beware the Blob was part of the film's soundtrack. I thought that it was just inspired by the movie after the fact, sort of like Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult or Dracula by Iced Earth, but I like how it kind of set up a campy vibe for the picture, and even though the movie plays out completely straight after the main title sequence, I still felt like there was kind of a campy vibe to it going on. Also, for those of you wondering, some of you may have noticed that I have the Blu-ray of the film here. And in case you're wondering about the picture quality, you're pretty much going to get the same bang for your buck if you get the DVD, because it's still grainy as fuck to look at. But the colors are very pretty, and yes, for those of you who don't know anything about this movie, even though it was made in the 50s, it is in full color. So, regarding the characters in this movie, they're not particularly deep, but they are very likable and fun to watch. And to my understanding, this was actually the first horror film to showcase teenagers as the main characters and to shine a more positive light upon them. And even though the adult characters in the movie are working against the teenagers and insisting that everything that they're telling them is lies and they're just, trying to pull a joke as they're talking about this monster that's going around eating people, there are really no bad guys here. Everyone feels like they have their own motivations for the way that they think, and really the only villain in the picture is the Blob itself. Now, as for the way that people react to this creature, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like, the first person to discover the Blob is this old man, and, it attaches itself to his arm and starts slowly digesting him, and his moans of pain really sold the fact that, he was going through this great agony as, his arm was being slowly dissolved by this monster. And I can definitely see how the movie was effective for the time that it came out. It was introducing audiences to this monster that had no recognizable human qualities. It doesn't have a face and it doesn't walk. It just creeps across the ground. And it has no abilities to think or reason. It just sort of mindlessly feeds on life. And it was very gruesome for the time as well. I liked how the Blob started off as this sort of clear color, but then once it started eating people, it turned red, which, suggested that it was gorging itself on their blood. So definitely a little gruesome for the time that it came out. But I was starting to address the reactions of the people. And honestly, the Blob is one of the most avoidable movie monsters. Like, there's a scene where this nurse is in the same room as the creature, and she's in the corner screaming in terror as it just kind of goes across the ground like this towards her. And, I mean, even if it was blocking the doorway, she could have just continued rotating around the room, going to the opposite side of the room from where the Blob was until it was eventually away from the door and she could just escape that way. So it hasn't aged particularly well, but if you're into cheesy old monster movies and you somehow haven't seen this one yet, then it does come highly recommended. I had a great time watching it. Now, I'm going to start going into some spoiler territory here. I would really like to see them make a modern day sequel to this film. And I know that they've done it already with the Texas Chainsaw 3D, which was just an ungodly piece of shit. And, that one really didn't work. But if there was ever a classic film that warranted a modern day sequel, it would be this one. I mean, we've got, for those of you who haven't seen this movie, at the end they end up freezing the creature, which, doesn't kill it, it just immobilizes it. And they take it to the Arctic, and Steve McQueen comments that everyone will be safe as long as the Arctic stays cold. And we've got these sort of eco-horror films coming out already, like The Thaw and Blood Glacier. Why not make a sequel to The Blob that follows the same concept? I don't even see why Hollywood hasn't gotten onto this already. Obviously, they would have to alter it just a little bit and make the monster faster in order for it to be, more menacing, but I think that could definitely work. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about this movie. I hope you all have a good one.